if you're asking for a pick better than what all the unions and Randy Weingarten and the teachers union, et cetera, say is great and that they're thrilled to have, not only are you unreasonable, you probably have this thing that I didn't think actually existed, but I'm now beginning to believe does. Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Oh, it totally exists.
Like if you say Trump is giving us exactly what we want and I hate it, no, brother, you lost the plot at some point, right?
So in a rather hilarious twist, Cenk is starting to become one of the almost odd voices of reason on the left, which is never something we would have predicted back in 2016 when he had his infamous generational crash out. But here we are in 2024, living in the twilight zone, where Cenk, and he said this in a recent show, literally is now accepting that Trump Derangement Syndrome may actually be a real thing, and we'll show you his surprising defense of one of Trump's cabinet picks, as well as many points of public agreement he has made with the MAGA base. So guys, do us a big favor. We'll show you all this here today. A lot to talk about on the front of Cenk Uygur. So make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Why should you subscribe? Because not only does it ensure we can keep bringing you these videos, but as Cenk always says, you gotta support independent media, okay? So hit that red subscribe button. So true, Cenk. So true. That's something we agree on. Anyways, with that said, guys, so recent takes from Cenk. Like, what has he been saying? You know, you may remember when he destroyed Alan Lichtman on Piers Morgan, and that was a glorious moment where we were all pro Cenk in that like 2-minute exchange. But ever since then, so he recently responded. You may have seen that The View did a segment where they were making fun of Joe Rogan for believing in dragons, and they were saying he's not a reliable source of independent media. And Cenk actually went out and defended Joe, sort of, by putting this poll out on X saying, what is more credible, dragons or The View? And as you can see here, dragons got 96.7% of the vote. The View only got 3.3%. I believe the ladies of The View right now are currently demanding a recount, but I don't know if that'll sway the election results, okay? I don't think this is exactly too close to call. That's right. We can officially project dragons wins the poll in terms of being more credible than The View. So very hilariously, right? Step one, Cenk is calling out all the mainstream left-wing media, okay? And part of it is because you could say TYT is like alternative left-wing media, but it is also a weird paradigm where now, like, you know, the left is turning on themselves, and hilariously, we're sort of rooting for Cenk because nobody likes legacy media in this fight. But anyways, he goes on to say, the internet has spoken. Tell The View we have rendered our judgment. The online world has found you not credible. ABC News can go fact check that. So true, Cenk. So true. I totally agree. But now he's been trying to kind of do this thing where he wants to find middle ground with MAGA. Like he wants to sort of show the places where he and the Trump base agree. So he also went out and said, can I get agreement on one more thing? The people on TV who claim to know everything don't know beep cuss word. Again, I agree. Okay, let's go, Cenk. So true. So true. He goes on to say, they said we had to do Iraq war and the bank bailouts. Hillary was definitely going to win. Trump could never win. Bernie couldn't rise. Politicians are having honest debates and donors don't control the politicians. They're objective and they think they have any credibility left. So that's very interesting. He goes on here to say, I hope this is another point of agreement between the left and right against the wishes of the establishment. Free Edward Snowden. So true, Cenk. Again, I agree with that, right? And interestingly, this is what we want to mainly cover today is the TYT response to Trump's labor secretary. He says, okay, we have our first real fight of populist versus establishment. I'm officially supporting President Trump's pick of Lori Chavez DeRaymer for labor secretary. All Murdoch media outlets, Chamber of Commerce, never Trumpers, and establishment Republicans Republicans are against her. This is what realignment looks like. Trump made a populist pro-worker pick, and I'm here to support it. All the corporate Republicans hate it. Will the establishment Republicans win, or a combined populist front? Now, if you don't know, Trump basically chose someone for his labor secretary that is very pro-union, right? This was essentially someone who was handpicked by Sean O'Brien, who is the president of the Teamsters Union. You may remember that in a very bold and historic move, the Teamsters president actually spoke at the RNC, and this is essentially Trump fulfilling that promise. Now, personally, I just find that pick to be very unique and interesting, and I'm not entirely opposed to it, right? I'm not the biggest pro-union guy. You know, I'm kind of like neutral on it. I think it should be a healthy balance between union interests and the greater interests of having like an economy, you know, a functioning economy. But especially when you consider, number one, there has been a realignment in politics, whether you want to realize that or not, right? Republican politics have changed. Trump is a working class candidate. Okay. So kind of you have to balance those interests. Also, we made a de facto promise with the Teamsters and the union workers in this election. And I'm glad to see at the very least, Trump is fulfilling that promise, right? He's coming through on it. And if you want to say, okay, but that's too pro-labor, we need to be pro-business, we're free market, we're conservatives, well, then the Trump Treasury Secretary, I should also point out, is a big Wall Street guy, right? He came straight from Wall Street. So it's like, okay, you have Secretary of Labor is a big union person. The Secretary of the Treasury is a big Wall Street person. That almost kind of is a happy medium to me. I'm actually in support of that. Now, on the question of why TYT is doing this pivot, a lot of people have their own speculations, right? Some people will say it's a genuine ideological transformation. Some people will say that it's grifting or something in the middle. I'm not here to make the judgment on that, right? That's for you to decide. We're just here to kind of like laugh at this and also kind of be like, okay, Cenk, let's go. You know, it's just all in good fun, honestly, right? I'll say this as well. I don't agree with TYT, obviously, on a lot of the issues, although I think the populist issues you could say we do mostly agree on, right? But the thing is this, TYT's not our audience, guys, okay? So if they're going to do ultimately good things, such as try to be a little more balanced in some of their reporting, I guess you could say. And especially, I like that poll of the Dragons versus The View. If they're going to mutually help all of us undermine the credibility of legacy media, because the right-wingers have obviously all tuned it out, but now if they're going to encourage the left-wingers to do it as well, then that's obviously a net good for American society. Okay, but anyways, with that said, I want to play, this is what Cenk had to say in defense of him obviously liking the labor secretary because she's very pro-union, agrees with Cenk on a lot of the issues. Anna weighs in as well. Let's take a listen.
Garden, etc. If you're asking for a pick better than what all the unions and Randy Weingarten and the teachers union, etc., say is great and that they're thrilled to have, not only are you unreasonable, you probably have this thing that I didn't think actually existed, but I'm now beginning to believe does, Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Oh, it totally exists.
Like
if you... Whoa! Let's go, Cenk! No way. No way he just said that. He said for how many years Trump Derangement Syndrome wasn't real? It's real. We're so back, guys. We're so generationally back. Let's go. Put on the MAGA hat, Cenk. You know you want to.
You say Trump is giving us exactly what we want, and I hate it. No, brother, you lost the plot at some point, right? Sorry, but that makes no sense at all. Take the frickin' win. And if you don't, and you fight her, and you join the goons like Mitch McConnell and Grover Norquist and Karl Rove and Charles Koch, and you defeat her, what you're going to get is an infinitely worse labor secretary that is going to do massive damage to the workers in this country. And by the way, the populist right at this point, because Trump picked her, is with us in fighting back against the Koch brothers and Mitch McConnell. So if you think I lost the plot, no, you lost the plot if you're on the side of Mitch McConnell and the Koch brothers.
I want to end with...
So true, Cenk. Go off. Go off.
Yeah, and I agree with Faz Shakir when it comes to the NLRB. And by the way, I mean, in his first term, Donald Trump didn't have any of the influence that he's currently getting.
All right. So there's Cenk finally admitting that Trump Derangement Syndrome is real. Let's take a listen now as Anna Kasparian's going to weigh in herself. Check it out.
Influence that he's currently getting from Sean O'Brien. So hopefully Sean O'Brien is working with Trump in deciding who will serve in the NLRB, because I think that this role is important. And look, I would love nothing more than for Trump to prove everyone wrong by having a good National Labor Relations Board, a pro-labor labor secretary, especially when before he named her as labor secretary in his new administration, you know, there were all these stories being published, including one in the Washington Post that talked about how the upcoming Trump administration is going to gut labor. Doesn't seem like he's looking to gut labor if he's willing to appoint, you know, a pro-labor labor secretary like Chavez DeRaymer.
Okay,
yeah, it's almost like they lie about everything. Okay, they just fearmonger about everything. Glad you guys are starting to notice this. Okay, well, welcome to the party.
Couple things here. Look, I know his record in the past on labor has been terrible, so we're not naive about it. So could he go back in that bad direction? Yes.
Of course, yeah.
If he picked another labor secretary, he would definitely go in that direction. Since he picked this labor secretary, we're hoping that maybe he doesn't go in that direction. So please encourage that. And as I said, Faz was the campaign manager for Bernie in 2020. It's not like, oh, every progressive in the country just got hoodwinked overnight, right? No, we know their track record really well in terms of these candidates. And we're telling you, this one's a good one. The idea that you should be maximalist in your resistance to Trump and even disagree with him on things that he agrees with us on is irrational. And I can't stand it. It makes no sense, which leads me to my final point, which is...
Again, you don't say. Again, what are we watching? It's like TYT being the odd voices of reason to the left. Like, okay, you may disagree with the guy on some things, but maybe it's not constructive to be so insane that when he gives you something arguably that maybe you want more than the traditional Republicans want, at least you claim you want, you should praise it instead of losing your freaking mind. I just saying, right?
Look, Sean O'Brien had a lot of courage to do what he did. And what you don't know, but I do because I've been through it, is that burns a lot of your bridges and it expends a lot of your political capital. And he would be persona non grata in Democratic circles after giving that speech at the RNC.
Also true.
And so it would cost him. I would be very surprised if it didn't cost him personally. It didn't cost him his contacts. It didn't cost him a lot behind the scenes. But he took that step because he thought he could get something positive like this out of it. And he was right. And when someone is right, you should give them credit where credit is due. So thank you, Sean O'Brien and Teamsters, for getting us this pick.
I mean, at least one outlet on the so-called left is praising Trump because he picked a pro-union person as the labor secretary. Okay, not exactly that I'm begging for their credit or thinking that, oh, praise from the other side is the reason we should do it. No, the reason why I think it's a good pick strategically, although there are many different interests and factions of the GOP, is I do think after the Teamsters made the choice to speak at the RNC, and they did us a huge favor by not endorsing Kamala in the election, and you're now seeing the realignment where so many, obviously, union workers are now in support of our party and not their party, we need to give them a seat at the table, right? We're arguably obligated to do that, and I think that's totally fair. You know, so I know some conservatives are going to say, how dare we embrace the labor unions? That's not conservative. That's not free market. It's like, buddy, politics has changed. I don't know what to tell you about it, okay? This is not the GOP of Bush or even of Reagan back then. Things have changed. The issues have changed. The coalition has changed, okay? Trump's never really been anti-union worker as a whole. Now, do I think there's a lot of systemic problems in America's labor unions? Yes. Do I think it needs to be a balancing act between business interests, union interests, workers, you know, the economy, etc.? Absolutely. But I have no issue with them getting a seat at the table. And again, I'm actually glad to a degree that Trump sort of honored a unspoken promise he made, obviously, during that campaign cycle of union workers are now welcome in the GOP. So, you know, and interesting to see, obviously, that Cenk is in agreement there. So there you have it, guys. With that said, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. What do you think of the labor secretary? And what do you think of TYT, specifically Cenk, actually giving Trump some credit? I don't know, you know? Put on the MAGA hat, Cenk. I'm just saying. With that said, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.